Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready for that R&B podcast? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready for R&B with Russ and Blake and a guest today? That's all. That's all. Welcome back to R&B Podcast with Russ, with Blake, and a special guest, of course. But before we introduce him, we got to thank God for this opportunity to have this conversation. And Mr. Brandon Cluff, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
On this lovely Sunday.
Appreciate it.
Me and Brandon have known each other for a couple years now. We have worked out in each other's space without talking to each other for a little bit. And then after we start having some conversations, we realized we were interested in some of the same things. And I figured this guy's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then he has some background in what we have been trying to educate ourselves in. And he's helped me out with my camera that I spent a lot of money on and didn't necessarily know how to use.
It happens.
And yeah, there's a bit of a learning curve with that. I was like, wow, there's a lot of features here. So, you know, he's been hands-on with me in that sense. And we've shared some discussions along the way as far as technological innovations, business, etc. And so I figured we have him on today to talk about some of those things. So Brandon, what exactly is it that you do with your business?
Man, yeah, so I own a company with my cousin Callan. We've run Studio Black Films for the last 8 years. Started off with Instagram edits kind of as a joke. We were just like, hey, let's do this thing. We both kind of enjoy making videos. This is before we even understood any legalities of anything. Started doing accidentally, like taking copyright footage and stuff like that. Don't quote me on this, but that's, yeah. We ended up taking some footage from other companies and seeing it, and we were like, oh, I don't really know if we like how they made this. Let's put our own spin on it, right? And so we started doing this for like college football teams, and then there were models here and there, and then all of a sudden my cousin did an edit for one of the Rockstar Energy models, and we posted it to our feed, and it blew up. The model ended up actually seeing it, loved it, called us out, and she was like, hey, can you fly out to LA? I'm doing a photo shoot. We don't even own a camera at this point. But my cousin Callan, he was super business minded, and he just jumped at the opportunity. He's like, absolutely, we can do it. We'll be there. This is like 6 days notice. And we're like, sure, we'll be there. He ends up buying like a cheap, like $400 like DSLR camera. We drive out to LA, do the shoot, have no clue what we're doing, make an edit, and she ends up loving it more than the previous edit we did before. Hooks us up with some photographers. The photographers are out here in Phoenix. And then it's kind of like just this one thing leads to another thing in the creative space, where you just get introduced to people that you don't realize are going to like have a humongous impact and change your life and change the direction in which your life is going to go. Yeah. And then all of a sudden we're just 8 years deep into this thing, and like we don't even shoot with photographers really all that much anymore. We just do a lot of stuff in like the automotive industry, which is basically our main niche. But yeah, man, it's just interesting how life can kind of just veer off in a direction you didn't expect, but it's been a fantastic journey, and I love it, man.
Yeah. That's a cool conception story.
For sure. What did you feel like you were going to do before you got into this? What was like your track?
Man, so I was an athlete growing up. So from the time I was like 2 or 3 years old, I've played quarterback, went through high school, was ranked in the top 3 Arizona quarterbacks coming out of high school. But what's interesting is like I didn't get a lot of attention back then. I didn't play a lot when I was like a freshman or sophomore. Come my junior year, we're playing against, and this is back in like 2009. I'm aging myself, but back in 2009, like we're going through and I'm playing teams like Hamilton. And if you can think back to then, they had basically their offense was probably all 11 guys went D1 or D1 AA. Like they just had like a phenom team. Right. And then the following year was like Chandler had a phenomenal team. So I remember my first game I got to start, I played them, end up getting like a concussion halfway through the game. ended up playing the whole game because I didn't understand that I had a concussion. I wasn't showing that many signs, and this is kind of before I think like concussion protocol and CTE was like big. But yeah, I end up not getting placed at Arizona or Arizona State or any of the colleges I applied to. And so that was almost like a test of faith. I'm like, am I good enough to play? Go to Scottsdale Community College. I'm competing with what turns out to be 3 of the top quarterbacks in the country. We were putting up numbers. We were putting up probably close to like anywhere between 500 and 700 passing yards a game. Like we had just had phenomenal athletes, right? These guys ended up going again, like they'd play 1 year, go Division I, play 1 year, go to Division I.
Right.
And so I end up getting a chance to play a handful of games. And fortunately enough, I get a call from a coach who had seen me playing high school. And he's like, you really didn't get the publicity we thought you should have. We're surprised you're even still available. Come out and play at Fayetteville State. So I got out and playing at Fayetteville State. We're doing really well. What ends up happening is I kind of get like a freak accident in the weight room, end up fracturing my L5-S1 vertebrae, end up rupturing a disc in my back. And just the recovery process was just not good. Didn't have a good recovery process. I don't think that like the medical at that level is what you see at Division I. You don't see guys who are, you're not going to get MRIs. It's kind of like a lot of stuff it's on you to go figure it out.
Right.
And we'll be here if you need anything, but like we don't really have any resources to tell you where to go.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, I didn't have a great relationship with the coaches after that. And so I started having kind of like a spiral in college where my main goal, like I said, since I was like 2 or 3 was to try and go pro. And I had skill and I was good. But again, like with athletes, if you get injured and it's a serious one and you don't have the support system where you're at, it's very difficult to navigate that.
Yeah.
And so I ended up just deciding, it's probably better for me to not be in this kind of negative mind space. Because I wasn't mature enough to know how to deal with it. Mature enough to know how to deal with like an injury of this severity. My family is back home. I'm struggling. I'm now struggling in school. I'm starting to notice that being on painkillers is starting to like affect my life. And that's again something that you can just kind of slip into. And I was lucky enough that I happened to see like a documentary of Brett Favre's addiction to I can't remember if it was Vicodin or things like that.
Whatever narcotic.
Yeah. And there was one morning I remember I was taking Vicodin with breakfast, and then I got to a point where I was trying to take Vicodin to prevent any type of pain at all. And I remember the one day I ended up taking, it was like 6 Vicodin before lunch. And it was one of those things where it was like, I hadn't even realized what had happened. It was like you took your scheduled one with breakfast, and then all of a sudden I'm kind of walking to class and I tried to get out of my chair and I felt this I was like, oh, let's not be in pain today. Took another one. And then it's icy on the ground and I make a little bit of a slip walk into class, and another one. And then all of a sudden I like realized, I was like, we're 6 Vicodin deep and it's not even noon. I'm in a bad place. We need to fix this. End up dumping the pills down the toilet, flushing them. And I call my mom. I'm like, I can't be here by myself. I don't know why I'm not mentally strong enough to handle this, but I need to get back to my support system. I need to get back home. I need to essentially like reset, get my life back on track, and then figure out a plan moving forward. And so I end up coming home, end up getting a job in bartending. That goes well for a little bit, but then you end up in a party scene. Not the best place to be when you're dealing with the things I'm dealing with. And then I say this, I mean, my now wife, I end up meeting her around the same time, and she just ended up being this absolute saving grace in my life, where she kind of, I think, saw the potential of what I could be, and she ended up getting me a job at SRP, which was like an entry-level job. It's like data entry kind of stuff. We end up being there for a couple months. My back keeps on deteriorating. I'm getting to the point where like I can't even sit for more than 30 minutes. I can't stand for more than 30 minutes. I can't lay down for 30 minutes. So for like the next 6 months while I'm waiting for like my benefits to kind of kick in at this job, my body is just like breaking down. It's getting worse and worse, and it's just breaking down. And eventually it was almost like at the 6-month mark when all my benefits kicked in, my back got to a point where I was like bedridden. And this is at like 22, 23 years old. So you go from being collegiate athlete playing, your body's in like the best place it's at when you're in your 18, 19, 20, 21 to a place where it's like you're almost crippled at 23. I'm starting to gain weight because you're not working out, and like this just is all cycling. So I end up finally being able to get a back surgery. And like I said, it's truly thanks to the fact that like the Lord put my wife into my life at the right time when I needed her. And she's even said it. She's like, the only reason you came to SRP was basically, it was the only way that you were going to get the help you needed with like the finances that you had at the time. I was broke. I was a college kid at the time, and back gets fixed. Life starts to kind of improve. We end up starting this video editing business, start shooting weddings, start doing all these things, start meeting great people. Like my life, you genuinely start seeing how life just starts getting better with just a healthy mindset, a healthy support system, healthy family, healthy friends. It was interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
it's a journey.
It was a journey. It was like a true test of faith, true test of just, I guess, resilience, whatever, mental fortitude, whatever you want to say. It was like there was a lot of things going on and a lot of tests occurring, like what seemed to be like back to back to back. And it was just like, what am I doing wrong? Like, am I doing anything wrong, or is this kind of just like a string of bad luck, or am I just getting kind of tested in this moment? But yeah, like I said, man, wife comes into my life and just absolutely changed my life in some of the best possible ways. And so it's just interesting, man, how life takes its course. You don't expect to be on whatever path you're on. You have a plan for what you want to do, and God's plan is like, yeah, that's not what's happening. You're going on whatever path I'm putting you on. We're going to take this journey and see what happens.
Right. Yeah. And I feel the same way about my wife coming into my life. It's just like the right time when we are starting to make decisions that are very important, and we're going in a direction where it's not going to be the best for us, and we need that kind of that rock in our life to help guide us. Also that we can help guide as well, and kind of play off of each other in that way. And I don't really know much about your relationship in depth, but just my interactions with you and your wife and the short periods that we get, there's a certain energy about you guys, and I see how you guys respect each other and then motivate each other in the gym setting, which is cool. And I just see a lot of positives definitely around you from what I just observed from the outside too. So I think that's important for people to hear, because especially in this world of dating, with internet dating, I think that we sometimes just have to take a step back and focus on ourselves. And then that person will come into our lives when the time is right. Right? Especially you talk about faith, and we talk about faith a lot on our show. So kind of give us a little detail. You said that faith helped you get through these difficult times. What did that look like for you? Man,
I would say, I mean, obviously at that time when I was going through those trials and tribulations, I had a hard time with faith. I had a very hard time understanding it, because I had done kind of all the right things in my mind of what you should do. I'd always treated people with respect. I'd always, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. I had always been respectable to like my coaches and my teachers, and as much as possible to like your peers. But it was almost like, why, if I'm doing all the right things, why are all these wrong things happening? It's kind of like why am I being punished for trying to act in the correct way? And so you start having your tests of faith. Like I wouldn't even, and here's the thing, what's just crazy. I was like, I wasn't even the most religious person growing up. Like I come from an interesting background. Like my parents got divorced when I was less than a year old. My dad is Mormon. My mother's Catholic. My upbringing is in a completely separate space. My mom ends up meeting my stepdad, who's an incredible man, and he took care of me, and he was like devout Catholic. But like when I was never pressured into being like baptized in any specific faith. And so like my journey with God, Allah, whoever anyone prays to, whatever spirit it is that is moving this life, my journey with it has just been through realizing that there's positive and negative in this world. It's not one or the other. It's good and evil. It's just good and evil. It's
in like
positive
every
and negative
situation,
in
basically.
every situation, right? So I'm like, if things are going this bad, like they can go just as good. And so like realizing that like everything seems to come in balance. Everything in my life has seemed to come in balance. Like my absolute lowest lows have been met with some of the most like incredible highs as well. And I've been extremely fortunate in ways where it has nothing to do with necessarily me. Like some people have just been put in my life where like without them, I know my life would have been completely different. And it's like, why was that person brought in at the moment? Why did that person end up in my life? Perfect example, like with my stepdad, when I'm 1 year old, my mom and dad split. My mom's from Zimbabwe. I end up getting like taken to Zimbabwe with her. My relationship with my dad gets completely derailed from a very early age. I don't think they would have worked anyways. They're just completely different people. That is what it is. But then you meet my like insert my stepdad comes into my life, and I could have ended up with a terrible stepdad. I could have ended up with a person who didn't want anything to do with me. But this man ends up teaching me some of the most incredible life lessons. He takes care of me like I am his son. He was an incredible man, and is still to this day one of the best parents I've seen in like my circle, like my social circle. Like when I hear people who have stepdad stories, and I'm just like, dang, like your story is so much worse off than mine was. Like, how did I end up getting so lucky that you were able to come into my life at a perfect time, right? And then he ends up like my dad, my biological dad, is still in my life like completely. I love the man to death, but the relationship that I have with my stepdad is just as strong, if not a little bit stronger than the one with my biological dad. And I'm like, I ended up with two amazing men to teach me how to like move through life.
That's big time.
It's incredible, right? I'm like, that's not normal. And I'm like, for me to have that fortunate scenario, there's no way that's just coincident and I just happened to be lucky, right? So, I mean, I've just noticed like in my life through just moments in time, you kind of see it. It's like, this can't be random.
Yeah. It's all lining up for you.
Everything, certain things just line up correctly. And I'm like, it shouldn't have done this, but it did. And so like, if I can't explain that through logic or reason, it's like, what's left? And it's like, the only thing I can think that's left is something better, something bigger and better. So
For
I love that.
Yeah, and I feel that too, because all these different things that line up that seem like coincidences that I know are here for me, that are growing me into my highest self or whatever it is I'm supposed to be. You can get to that point where you're like, dang, why do I have all this great stuff happening? And you look around the world and it seems as if other people are in worse situations. But I mean, I found that we can't really judge that because it's just like tests at different moments for every single person. But I'm wondering for you, like, how do you go about showing gratitude for that, all those kind of blessings and occurrences?
How do I go back showing gratitude?
Yeah, like just like in your life.
Showing gratitude. I mean, for me, I've always been big on family. Always, like, so I have two younger sisters, a younger brother. Going back to my stepdad, he, like I just mentioned earlier, my mom's from Zimbabwe. Like a bunch of our family has come into the country, and he was always one of the most generous men I've ever seen. Like whenever someone would come in, they would come stay with us for like 3 to 6 months, get their feet up. He would house them, take care of everything, and then basically get them kind of off the ground running. And any person I've ever spoken to, it was like everything they always noticed about him was just, he's the most generous man I've ever known. He's the most generous person I've ever known, generous person I've ever known. And so to kind of like show an appreciation for that, I try to be very similar. I try to not, I hate asking for things, but if I'm capable and if I'm able to in any moment help, whether it's, hey, I'm moving today. Do you have a minute? I'm like, sure. What time do you need me? It's like, if I don't have anything barring help, I want to give it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess that's how I kind of can show gratitude for it, is like, I'm a healthy bodied person. If you're looking for advice, I'd like to give it. Sometimes I accidentally give unsolicited advice, not intentional. It just, sometimes I see things and I'm just like, hey, like I can see where this is going wrong. Yeah. And I really want to help you. Like, I really think that you should just look in this general direction. And sometimes it comes across like I can be kind of like sounding like a know-it-all, but I'm just like I've had a very interesting life in my last 33 years. Like I've been through some experiences that you may not have perspective on. And I'm not saying that you're, what's the word? You're just uneducated to this, but I have a very unique way of looking at certain things. And it's just because the background I've grown up in, the family that I've grown up in, it is wildly diverse. Yeah. I'm talking about, I come from, like, my biological dad, it was just Thanksgiving. They're devout Mormons, like no caffeine, no sugar, like strict on the word. And then you go to my mother's side, or my stepdad's side, devout Catholics, like hardcore Catholics. Go to my mom, devout Christian. Like, I have these weird mixes. I've got family who come from Zimbabwe. I've got family that come from Dubuque, Iowa. I've got family that grew up in Thatcher, Arizona. That's a whole lot of mixed worlds and mixed worldviews that I've gotten to like witness and experience and listen to conversations and get kind of like a whole well-rounded perspective on how things work. So when I start seeing things in people, I'm just like, yo, just trust me. I'm not judging. I'm not judging in any way. I just see how this decision is going to potentially get you to this possible negative result. Maybe tweak this one thing. But like I said, for the most part, I don't want to give unsolicited advice. If I'm capable of helping in any way, I would like to do so. It's just trying to pick the right times to give that help. Yeah. You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean.
And you've made it evident that your stepdad showed you the benefits of generosity. And so that's your way of being generous too. Generous with information, generous with your assistance. And I know what you mean. Sometimes you see a situation that you may have been through yourself, or you know someone that's been through it, and you're like, oh, I could really save that person some strife, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times those are the people that are not going to accept the assistance.
You got to pick the right time. They have to be in the right mind space to be willing to accept whatever nugget of information you give them, right?
Sure.
You kind of just put on display and let them know that, hey, I have some information over here. If you maybe want it, like, just let me know.
Right. And also, like, in their own like divine narrative, you might not be the person
Correct.
that is necessary for them to talk to just yet. You know what I'm saying?
That's a great point, because it took me a while to realize that, because especially as a nurse, there's certain situations with certain people where, like, I'm supposed to be the one educating you and giving you this guidance and information, right? But even in that setting, sometimes they might want to just talk to the doctor. Sometimes they might want to do their own research because I don't look like I know what I'm talking about or something, right? And I've grown to not be offended by that. I do what I can to gain people's trust, and then, like you said, let them know that I have this information that's available to them. But you just find the ways to help as many people as possible in as many ways as you can, right?
Yeah.
And diversify that assistance. And I always believe that the intention is never gonna put us in a bad situation,
Right.
And
That's huge.
Yeah, sometimes you can even be trying to help people that might take advantage of you and might not be the best person, right?
Yeah.
But
I've been down that road as well. I mean,
yeah, I think karma is always going to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll never put that aside, right?
Dude, and I'm super curious because you're painting this picture about how you were taking the painkillers,
Yeah.
and then you see the Brett Favre documentary, and you're knowing like, nah, this could lead me down such a wild path. When you stopped taking them, did you experience like some withdrawal symptoms from coming off the painkillers, and how'd you deal with that?
I would say, I don't know if it was necessarily that I had to, I think I'm very fortunate. I think that I recognized it early enough that I didn't have like a chemical change in my body,
physical
a
yes.
physical change where like I started having like, I you know what, I'm saying that, but then I'm also thinking back where I might have had a couple moments of like withdrawal where I don't know if it was like mentally not, it wasn't mental strength where I was kind of like, oh my gosh, can I deal with pain? Because like, I've had going through football back before football was softer, like for a better way of putting it.
Especially on quarterbacks.
Yeah, dude, I've had like a broken elbow, fractured ribs, cracked sternum, torn PCL, MCL. Like I've had injuries.
Yeah.
I've had injuries where it's like painkillers would make sense or whatnot, but the Vicodin scenario, I don't think that I was on them long enough to feel any like long-term withdrawal effects. I think in the short term, I definitely think that there's a need for certain pain medications. I think there's definitely scenarios in which people should be on them. But the hardest thing is like self-medicating. It can just turn into this landslide of that you can't stop.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's like there's a Netflix series. I think it's called Painkiller, and you see how like the pharmaceutical industry can kind of.
I think
Lock
is it
you
called
in.
Dope Sick?
Dope Sick's one of them.
Okay, Dope Sick's
That's
one.
a crazy good one. But
Yeah.
then there was a I don't know if it was a documentary if they'd made it into like a Netflix series, but
Okay.
they're talking about, and I don't want to misrepresent it. It's Oxycontin or Oxycontin. I'm not sure, but it shows kind of how predatory that system can become. Where, hey, I slipped and fell in my bathroom. It's like, hey, here's a coupon to go try this new painkiller. And then you try it and you realize that, hold on, this thing can be more addictive than heroin. But we're just giving you a free sample. It's like, so you're giving people who slipped in a bathtub the same medication that you're giving people that just had like amputation, right? And it's like, how does a system justify that? It's a little, like I said, in some senses it seems a little predatory, or maybe that it's just, I'm obviously not in the medical field, but I don't know if there's other less intense options. Like there has to be a middle ground between ibuprofen and Vicodin.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally I don't like medications in general. They all have their purpose, but I think that people lose sight that they should be very temporary as possible, regardless of what the medication's for. Yeah, as far as what medication, not a fan. It can be scary. It can be a bad situation. But like you said, I'm glad that you recognize it when you did and are able to be where you are now. So your back surgery went pretty well for the most part, yeah?
Well, the first one, so I did a discectomy, which is just to like clean out the ruptured disc, and then they kind of sew it back together. I think when the doctor was explaining it in very layman's terms for me, he's like, you've got vertebrae and then you've got this disc in the center, and picture it as like a jelly donut, right? He's like, when you ruptured it, the jelly essentially leaked out the side and is now putting pressure on your sciatic nerve. That's why you can't stand. That's why you can't bend. You can't lift your legs up. And he's like, we're just going to go in there and we're going to clean all that released jelly. He's like, we're going to stitch it up. You're going to be good to go. And it was the first time I had been out of pain, like literally no pain in, was it 3 years? Like 3 or 4 years. And I'm talking, when I say pain, I'm talking like debilitating, can't move type pain. And so it's the first moment that I don't feel this, and I'm heading home. And mind you, I'm probably still very drugged up from the anesthesia and all that from being under surgery. And I'm sitting in the car and I'm getting driven home, and I'm lifting my knees in the car because I'm just like pain free, right? I'm over here. I'm like, I was like, do you guys see this? And I'm lifting my legs up, and they're like, stop doing it. But I'm again, I'm still coming out of surgery. I'm not listening, and I'm doing this. 2 days later, my disc ruptures again. Oof. So I need a second discectomy.
Man.
And now it's like, okay, we're not messing this one up. Yeah. You're going straight to bed. You're not moving for 6 weeks. Go in the bed, do that. Problem is now I've got like a fraction of a disc left in there. That one fails. So I end up having to get a third back surgery in the span of like 3 months. And they end up fusing my spine, unfortunately. But I get a spinal fusion. That takes so much time to recover from. I can't remember. I think it was like a full year or two before I even started working out again. And so it was a situation where it was like I had to go back to the basics of almost like relearning how to walk. Like I had a walker at 24 or 25. This is forever ago. But yeah, like I had a walker. I remember there's pictures of my mom like helping me walk. And it's like, it's crazy because you're trying to picture this where it's like, it's the 23-year-old in the walker as opposed to the parent and the kid walking the parent. Like, so seeing that in photos is wild to this day. But yeah, like I ended up gaining 85 pounds over the course of this time. I ended up being I was like, I think my heaviest, I was like 298. There's a picture of me at Christmas, like where I'm wearing like a blue shirt, and I just look like a giant blueberry. If you like look up, what was it?
Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka. Yeah. I look straight up like that person. I was like, dang, this is crazy.
Violet Beauregard.
Violet Beauregard, man. Like you could put me side by side with it. So I end up, I have family who've like struggled there with like obesity and being larger. And I had a conversation with one of my cousins, and he's just like, whatever you do not cross that 300 number mark. He's like, because once that happens, he's like, 305 is not that much worse than 300. And then it's like 330 is not that much worse than 300. And then it's like 350 is not that worse than 300.
Yeah.
So that mentality of like, whatever you do not cross this threshold, because you will not you'll probably just let it go. You'll just be like, it's too far gone. And I'm thankful for him telling me that. Because that was a conversation where I was like, okay, let's not do this. I got to 298 and I have no concept of nutrition at this point. So I do the only thing I think I know what I should do, and I just don't eat for like 5 days. Strict 5 days. I end up giving myself like a 8-pound buffer, and then that's kind of where like the fitness journey began. Like a legitimate fitness journey, because like obviously you're an athlete, you kind of work out, but I don't understand how things work. Like I understand like if I push weight, the weight gets increased, I get stronger. That's kind of the best I could understand. You go do sprints, you get quicker, get faster, build faster fibers, things like that. But yeah, over like the next 5 years, it was kind of this go to the gym and try things and hope it works.
How was that with your back?
Tough, because can't squat, can't deadlift, can't do anything to potentially fracture a spine that's trying to essentially form bones out of nothing, right? Like, so
you were done with PT at this point, or?
I did so little PT.
Oh, really?
That I think is another thing I messed up. Like I should have done more PT at the time. I should have anybody out there, take it serious. Don't skip your PT. Yeah. Do your PT. It's not fun, but just do it. It saves you long term. It saves you over the long term. Yeah, I would go in the gym, try and lift dumbbells, try and move as I could. And working out on my own, I was like, I've been working out since I was 15 in a gym. I should know how to do this. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I basically am just kind of like spinning the wheels, going nowhere. I would hover at like 270 to 280 pounds. I could not get down. I couldn't figure out why. And it comes down to like nutrition is huge. If you eat like an athlete does in college, when you're no longer an athlete in college, your body does not respond. Right?
For sure.
There were like, I know like there were times like I could eat like 3 pizzas and pasta and wings and everything's good. Cause then you'll go burn 4,000 calories.
Right.
And it's like, this doesn't even affect you. And you can eat like that because you're going through like a crazy regimen. And then you get out of college, you're still wanting to eat the same. You still want to eat those foods. And like obviously the older I get, the more knowledgeable I get of nutrition. That food is it's poisonous to your body. It is straight up poison. I mean, if you look at the back of a food label these days, you can't pronounce half the words. I'm like, my ketchup should not be mostly chemicals, and then at the bottom say like includes tomato juice.
Well, there doesn't even need to be more than 2 ingredients.
Right.
Or what, 3 or 4 maybe.
Maybe just for like a little bit of like pizzazz, but yeah, like I'd been on this journey of just trying it myself, and it just did not work. I'm stubborn. Like I will try something until I know it doesn't work. And I end up hiring a trainer out in Scottsdale, and I just I came across a post and it was like, do you want to lose 50 pounds in like 3 months? I'm like, absolutely. That sounds fantastic. I don't lose 50 pounds in 3 months. I lose like 15 pounds in 3 months. But it got me kind of like tapped into, hold on, I can get results if I go to somebody who knows what they're doing, right? I can get these results. So I end up seeing my buddy Hamza, owner of Concept Co. And I think he's recently sold it, but he opened up his gym, and he's like, or before he opened his gym, he was over at Self Made, and he was like, I'll help train you. And so me and Nicole started working out with him, and he's incredibly knowledgeable on how to work like physical movements. And he'll tell you this, he's like, he wasn't an expert on nutrition, but he knows how to build muscle. Like he's very good at that. So I work out with him, and man, like my body just starts changing, like correctly changing in the right way. And then he opened up his gym and kind of got busy, and I ended up meeting David Kanyinde over at Vibranium, and me and my wife start training with him, and I end up losing 47 pounds over the next year and a half, just following an actual nutrition plan that is meant for my body, my size, how my metabolism reacts to these specific things. The workouts were intense, but like manageable. They were never where I'd work out and be like, I don't want to ever enter a gym again. It was like, here's what my body's capable of. I will push it to what I can. And then sometimes a little too far, but I will push it as far as I'm mentally capable. And then the key is just like sticking to that nutrition. And yeah, like I said, like I lost 47 pounds over about a 15, 16 month
Yeah, I watched
span.
that. I was like, dang, this dude.
Yeah.
Every week, dang, this dude.
Yeah. It was cool, man. It was a fun journey. And I mean, my wife did a physique competition recently, kind of what sparked that big cut, and her transformations and wild. Wild. She looks incredible.
Yeah, you guys both little superstar couple.
Yeah, trying, man. Trying. I can't really.
It makes it easier when she's in it too, right?
It does. I mean, on the daily basis, it makes it so much easier just because you both kind of have this same view on things. It's very difficult to stick to a diet when you've got one person that is like, I'm going to be super healthy, and the other person's like, yo, but have you seen that Chick-fil-A's got this new thing coming out?
Yeah, that causes a lot of stress.
A lot of stress. Yeah. And I'm like, trust me, like, I love bad food.
Yeah.
I love bad food.
Me
it
too.
Is so good. But the consequence of eating that does not outweigh how good healthy feels. And you can't tell, and someone who's never done that, who's never been super healthy, who's never put healthy ingredients in their body and then felt the effects on your body, you can't understand it. And
especially long term,
man, like you feel clearer, like your brain functions better. Your everything functions better.
Yeah.
And so when you're trying to explain this to someone who like doesn't believe, like I can only imagine how many times you probably deal with people who are potential clients or clients, and then they're just like, yeah, I slipped this week. But then the slip is like, it's not a slip. They just kind of like they jumped off the mountain, and they're just like back to square one. And you're just like, if you would just trust the process for the like 3 to 6 months, just watch what happens.
Because it's not complicated. It's difficult, but it's not complicated. And I tell people difficult's good, and we're going to simplify this as much as we can, and we're going to make it ABC for you. And all you got to do is follow these steps, but you got to do it every day.
Yeah. I've seen a post where it's like, you kind of like, I think like Jocko or someone, he's like, you choose your hard, or I've seen like a post where it's like, you suffer either way. And it's like one super ripped person or one person who's like dealing with like obesity. And it's like, you choose your suffer. One, you're going to suffer one way or another, like choose your hard. And I'm like, I've been down that side and it's not that fun, but you come to this side, it's like, hey, everything kind of seems to be not a little bit, everything seems way better once you get towards that side of that spectrum, right?
Yeah.
So,
for sure. And that's kind of another way that you're showing gratitude for all those like divine blessings in your life. You're taking your body serious and your health serious.
Yeah. How did improving your health affect your professional endeavors? Do you feel like your business success elevated along with your health?
I think that what's interesting is people don't realize that your body is like the first resume they see about you. Right?
Whoa. Wait, say it one more time. That was a big one.
Your body is the first resume someone is going to see about you. So if you walk into an interview and you are unkempt, you're not well shaven, you're not dressed well, you're overweight, it tells someone about the ability you have to be disciplined. It tells somebody about the ability you have to stick to things and just unfortunately not be a lazy person. And so before you even hand that piece of paper over, they're already judging you. We're human beings. Everybody judges. It's not a great quality we have, but we have it. And so it's like, I'm going to judge you on appearance. That is an evolutionary thing we have, right? And so if I see that you don't necessarily even care about yourself, why would I trust you to take care of a business that I'm working in? Why would I trust you to just manage? Maybe like I'm trying to think, like if I'm like a money manager and I don't look professional, why would I trust you with my money? Right?
Because you're questioning, like, what can you manage?
Yeah, what can you manage? Like you can't even manage like the calories you're choosing to put in your body. Like how can I trust you to take care of the money in my accounts?
Right. And you don't have the self-control to put good things into yourself. How do I know you have the control to not mismanage my funds? Right.
And that's not to say like there aren't people who just genuinely struggle with food and struggle with that. I mean, at the end of the day,
everybody does,
right? But it is so incredible when you see someone who genuinely like is at the top of their game. It's crazy because if you see someone who's at the top of their game physically, I can promise you they're probably more likely to be at the top of their game mentally, top of their game in their relationships. Like their habits are going to just be better.
Yeah.
And it's highly impressive when you see people who can do that.
Yeah.
You don't even have to say a word. You can walk in and you see somebody who's in a suit, right? You see a guy who's in a suit and he's in shape. He doesn't have to have any of his clothes off. You know he's in shape. That same suit you put on someone who is not in shape, it does not fit correctly.
That's a good point. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to look good naked." I'm like, well, you're gonna look good with your clothes on too, right? And I just love that analogy that your body is your resume because you got to put in the work to look good.
Yeah, you have to.
And that discipline translates into so many areas. And like you said, people don't know until they try. And trying is the hardest part, but that's literally all you have to do is try. You're going to see some level of result. Yeah. There has to be a little more science behind it if you want to get tailored down to like that really, I guess, life-changing adjustment.
Right.
But you will have a result if you try to eat healthy and try to work out every day.
And I want to say this, like I've noticed, like I said, my wife, incredible person. The best part about her, like I'm not type A at all. I'm very go with the flow. If I can have a go with the flow kind of day, I will prefer that over other kinds of days. That's just how I'm wired. She is not.
Yeah.
She is type A to the T. It's like we need 1.8 pounds of turkey to get us through this week. And I'm like, okay, I would have just bought a packet, but let's go with 1.8 pounds, right? Like she's dialed like that. So when she went on this cut, when she went on this journey to do her stage and her bikini competition, she ended up just learning so many hacks about food, so many ways to like doctor food up without adding oils, without adding too many ingredients to make it unhealthy. So the foods we were eating on her prep, she's learned how to get the correct seasonings that don't add calories to make our food taste incredible. Like I've had family members come over to our house, and she'll cook us what most people would be like, oh, that's healthy, I don't really want to eat it. And then she'll make it, and then my family will taste it, and they're just like, hold on, like what did you put in this? And then we'll go show them like all of the ingredients on it. It's just 0 calories this, 0 calories this, 0 calories this. And they're like, how does this taste so good? And it's like, she was able to just come up with these recipes that you just wouldn't even think of. Like, for example, like if you look at like sour cream, for example, this is like one of my favorite things that she found out. It's like, if you look at sour cream and then you look at like the nutritional facts about sour cream, it's not really that good for you. Replace sour cream with Greek yogurt.
Yeah.
Man, it is the exact same texture. It is almost the exact same taste. And
Right.
I hate healthy food, but that right there is one of the greatest hacks on earth. You want like a Chipotle bowl, a healthy one, change that one thing, game changer.
Yeah. So
And-
many hacks like that, people hear it and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, it sounds gross. It's like, it doesn't matter. Just try it.
Yeah.
Literally just try it.
Just try it.
could
Like
change
what's
your
one,
life.
yeah, what's one meal? Like are you
Yeah.
like realistically, like what is it that even if you don't like this meal, you're still going to eat it, you're still going to get full. It may not be that you're like completely satisfied for that one dinner. I promise you breakfast is in 8 hours. You can get what you want. Just try something a little different.
Yeah.
And like another one was, she found out, like, I don't know if you guys saw it, like on TikTok, the Ninja Creamy recipe started coming out. Essentially what that is, it's, you can buy like a protein shake from the gas station, right? Like, so let's just say like a core powered protein shake, vanilla protein shake. You put it in this little container, you freeze it overnight. Next morning it comes out, it's just this block of ice, and you put it in the Ninja Creamy, spin it down. It ends up having the same exact texture as like McDonald's soft serve ice cream or Dairy Queen like soft serve ice cream, but it's a protein shake.
Yeah.
So you're almost having this the sensation of eating a pint of ice cream, but instead of having like crazy amounts of sugar and all the wrong things, you're getting 42 grams of protein and a gram of sugar. And it's like, if I explain that to someone, like you can't explain it until you taste it. And the same thing, like I said, like my family would come over, she'd run this thing through the machine and they would eat it. And they're like, my cousin Shane actually said it. He's like, your weight loss is now less impressive because now I see that it's all her. He's like, now I see it's all the hacks she figured out for you guys. He's like, I'm no longer as impressed with how much weight you've lost.
Man, you didn't do nothing. You
didn't do nothing. You was just eating crazy. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're right. I was like, so just take that for what it is, right? Like take it for the fact that there is a way, I promise you, there's a way to to have really, really good food taste incredible.
And some of it's retraining your taste buds too. You talked about you went the 5 days without eating and it kind of jump started your fitness journey, and you said it's not very good. Some people would argue that a fast like that is good because it's going to kind of reset your body, reset your gut, and reset your taste buds to an extent. Of course, there's like a right and wrong way to do it, but
Mine was definitely wrong.
Yeah,
Mine was
yeah.
under the mentality of like, hey, let's just starve for 5 days because I can't figure out how to lose weight, but I know if I don't eat, weight will be lost.
Yeah.
Right. It was, and I understand what you mean. Like a fast, you need to do it. I think fasting in
you
certain
fast.
from time to time. Yeah. I don't need to anymore. Like, but I can understand definitely like if I'm struggling with with the foods I'm eating, or I'm struggling to like break habits, it's actually really good just mentally. Just to mentally be like, I can have control of what I eat. I can have
used to
control.
the feeling of hunger.
Yeah. Hunger is actually not a bad thing.
I used to never be hungry because I would eat every 2 hours.
Right.
Right.
And when you're building muscle and stuff like that, that makes total sense to eat 5, sometimes 6 times a day. Like
Right.
if you look at like Chris Bumstead, I can promise you that man eats like an absolute just disposal, like a food disposal. Just
eating some other things to help those nutrients, you know.
a couple other things, yeah. He's eating them for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think that being hungry is okay. Like I genuinely do. I'm trying to think. I like to think of things like in a longer time span. So like evolutionarily, like were our ancestors ever hungry? I can promise you, yes. Sub-Saharan Africa, when you haven't eaten for 2 days, I promise you, like your drive to go get that gazelle is 10x higher than it would be if you literally just got done with a meal.
You have to wonder how they had the energy after not eating for that period to actually accomplish getting their game. Right. So yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
And that's like that tapping into your superhuman abilities, right? I mean, you enter a flow state, you're given the hormones and the drive that you need to go get that goal that you need, even if you haven't eaten for a while. People experience getting like super strength if they're trying to save their kid from a car crash or something like that. Like they're like 10x.
You hear the story of like a mom literally like lifting a car off their kid, and you're just like, how's that even possible? It's like there's some things in your body that you can unlock when the right stressor hits it.
Yeah, and your mind is very powerful too. Some people don't allow themselves to focus enough to even try to pick up something heavy. Right.
Yeah. And that's where me and Blake keep getting into this conversation about AI versus the human mind, because it's like we don't know what stressors the mind has gotten to yet to fully understand what it's capable of doing. So it's like hard to compare these two as like an intelligence comparison.
Okay. He does not see AI for having quite as much potential as I do.
Oh, hold on.
No, I think it has amazing potential. Okay. I just think that the human potential isn't even close to like tapped yet. So it's like we can't compare them because it's like we don't even know what we're gonna get to.
I won't disagree with you. I think we can go into a rabbit hole
because we talk about like ChatGPT, and I was just yesterday telling our friends like this has been around for less than a year.
Right.
Look at what it can do. They're not gonna make it so that it can write better essays. Like that's already done.
Yeah. Like, you're trying to tell me that they came up with the greatest computing power that they could figure out, and it's like I'm gonna make it to have kids write free essays. No.
Right. And you think that they really gave us access to the best version of this?
I was gonna say like we have access to probably like the tip of the iceberg of what they have. Like you think of like what do you think Google has? What AI do you think what AI do you think that like BlackRock and Vanguard are running right now? Like let's be like
even to the point of running their trades and managing their actual business.
And they're doing it probably down to like 1/10 of a decimal point on like a price chart. And they're like, hey, let's sell 50 million shares at $37.38 because if we wait until it's 39 cents, our ROI is not going to be as high. Right. But this AI is,
and there's this amount of inflow into the market at this time. So if we time it here, then we won't miss out. Yeah. All of the details. And then on top of that, the AI is gathering the data.
Correct.
So
it's learning more.
From gathering the data, learning about the data, implementing the data, making the changes, and giving the advice.
Yeah. Mine is like
we have to give the prompts to the ChatGPT. They either have people constantly doing those prompts or they have the computer prompting itself. Right.
I want to say like the craziest thing is like if you look at this, dang, I totally just lost my train of thought. Cut you off and lost my train of thought. How terrible. No, the like ChatGPT with it, like you were saying with the prompts, it's like there are now guys on TikTok that are well, not just TikTok, but they've got like TikTok channels. I'll come across it and you'll see them. They're generating GPTs that generate prompt creation in specific niches. And so where you're saying we haven't tapped the human potential itself, I'm like, here's the craziest part. If you give ChatGPT to somebody who does not have any intellectual ability, they're only going to be able to scratch a fraction of the surface of what it's capable of.
Yeah.
And if you give ChatGPT to somebody who is like an industry professional and has a foundational understanding of whatever it is they're doing, and they understand how to ask the right question, you would be shocked at the results that come out of these things.
Yeah.
Like I've seen, if you look at stuff like Mid-Journey for like art creation, and then ChatGPT is obviously like the main highlighted one right now, but there's some programs out there that are just, they're so incredible, where you were talking about how the AIs for these banks can probably like compute information and then process the information and then run algorithms to better the current algorithms they're running. And I'm like, they're doing that at fractions of milliseconds. And I'm over here, I'm like, if you're talking about like human potential, I'm like, the only downside I see to like human versus AI, I'm like, just the processing speed.
Yeah.
Right? We can have extremely smart people, but there's no chance they're going to be able to process and spit out the results at the same rate that an AI could. And so you can just see how if somebody actually utilizes this kind of technology, if you have a fundamental understanding of what you're doing, how ChatGPT can be an incredible tool. I don't think they'll ever replace people, but if you put AI in the hands of like professionals, they're going to go leaps and bounds further than somebody that just solely relies on it.
I just think about how I use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And I know I don't use a fraction of all the features that are, again, available to us. And then I always forget that there's people who still don't even know about it yet.
Don't even know, right?
And then I'm always hesitant to talk about it on here because in my mind, I'm like, oh, people are going to get tired of hearing about this because they already know about it.
Yeah.
And then I go talk to people and they're like, oh, what is that?
It's crazy.
It's like, what do you mean?
I'm like, and you're not trying to, and you don't want to be rude, but I'm like,
Right.
You have to be living under a rock to not know that this stuff is out there now.
It's just so interesting though, because with the internet, there's so many different topics and
Right.
there's so many different people putting information out that really these big innovations can get overlooked like that until it's like the iPhone where everybody
Right.
has it and
All of a sudden,
all of
everyone
a
has
sudden, right?
Yeah.
What are you using as far as AI with your business? Are you guys integrating any of that into like your?
We integrate. A lot of what we do is content creation for companies. But for example, I mean, we run a couple social media accounts for a couple companies out here in the Valley. And if you're in a niche that you've never been in, for me to be like, hey, I'm going to generate a content strategy for you in a niche I've never worked in, it's going to be subpar to what the person hiring me for would be able to create, right? But I like to think like what ChatGPT could do is like, let's just say I'm working with like a vinyl wrap company, for example. I've never worked with a vinyl wrap company, and I'm like, okay, what is a content strategy I can put out for a vinyl wrap company in Phoenix, Arizona, targeting 22-year-old college students who are into modified cars and racing, right? The craziest thing is like I can put that into ChatGPT, that sentence. I have no concept of how this stuff works, right? I have no concept of how that demographic of people is into this car. That AI has information throughout the entire web of knowledge up to, I think it's like 6 months ago that it can access. And I'm like, okay, I just plug that in. It's like, okay, now give me content ideas for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, because it has data on all of these subsets of information. So instead of me spending the next 3 months trying to educate myself on every I and T I need to cross in this specific niche, I at least get a blueprint of where I should look.
Yeah.
So now I'm not fumbling through the internet trying to understand this niche. I now at least have a game plan on what direction to go. So I'm not spending 8 hours on Monday researching how does vinyl wrap work? Why would somebody buy vinyl wrap? Why would somebody wrap their car? Like what customer actually needs this? It's like that is going to give me one of the greatest summaries you've ever read in your life. And then if I want to essentially what was crazy is I started obviously trying to figure out how to optimize our business with AI. I know Premiere has some like AI features that people have built in as like softwares, and they're good. Like the podcast ones where you can kind of like click a button, and if you sync your mics correctly and you sync your cameras correctly, it can essentially cut a podcast almost perfectly. So that saves you 4.5 hours of sitting there cutting. And it's like, okay, but what you can now do is you can take that now newly found 4 hours and do something else with that time. That's the part that I think is incredible that people don't realize. I'm like, it's an incredible tool, but if you use this as like your whole entire business, you'll fall flat on your face, right? Because if I can be like, oh, I'm gonna start a podcast, and then I'm gonna use AI to cut it for me, and you just click the button and hope for the best. I promise you, it's going to be terrible.
Yeah, for sure.
It's going to be terrible.
I've experienced that. Yeah. For sure.
It's going to be terrible. And so a lot of my clients, like I've had them ask, like, are you using some of these AI technologies? I'm like, some of them are used, but the craziest part, like for example, what is it? The captions on screen. There are a few companies that I think do really, really well, but again, sometimes they're not perfect. You'll have to go in and edit and be like, oh, that is a typo. That is not what I said. And go in and physically manipulate the text. And before these caption things came out, like I was doing that manually. And manually, I'd be on those things for it'd be like a 1 minute clip would take you 3.5 hours to go word for word for word for word, trying to make sure they're all correct and timed correctly and colored correctly and emphasized correctly. Now with AI, I can plug it into a software. It spits something out in about 2 minutes. And now all I have to do is go find the parts that are incorrect. So something that took me 3 hours before now takes me 10 minutes. Yeah. It's like, I still have to do work. I still have to know like how to operate these systems, but it cuts out a lot of the unnecessary work. Right? Like I still have to be creative enough to know what angle to shoot. I still have to be creative enough to know how to light an area. I still have to know how to generally operate all of this stuff. But if I want to get real creative, like we could probably take this angle of you guys in this room and I could plug this into Photoshop and their new generative fill. I can put us in a completely different environment, right? I can make us look like we're sitting in the middle of the Rose Bowl and have 700,000 people watching us and it look real. That's the crazy thing about this stuff is if you have a creative ability, these things are just going to be incredible tools. And it's exciting to see kind of like where that's going.
Yeah. And I really like what you said, because it's like we're all going to be on that level playing field because we're going to get 4 extra hours. So now it matters, how are you going to use those 4 extra hours? And what are you going to learn new to add to your content or whatever it is that you're creating? Yeah.
I'm huge on trying to just constantly be educating myself. And I know a lot of people, they get really good at one thing, which don't get me wrong. Like you should try and master as well as you can, master what you're into, right? But I'm so big on constantly learning. Don't ever stop learning. Like I know there was a period where we were in our business and we kind of got into this rut of being like complacent and comfortable. And within, it was like 6 months, I realized everyone that we were beating has either caught us or is now moving ahead. And then to like restart that engine of like constantly learning is very difficult. It's a hard habit to like get back into. But yeah, like for me, like I'm always trying to figure out like how can I learn new things? How can I learn things to make my business better? What's interesting is like there's just so much information out there and it's hard to figure out what information to pick and learn from. But if you use these AI softwares, for example, like if I want to get information about, let's just say like Yahoo Finance comes out with an article about how Bitcoin is going to reach $50,000 by the end of this year. Hey, we think about that, right? But then it's like, I know you as a nurse must have like a crazy schedule. You must have just like a lot of tasks you just have to manage throughout a day. And I'm like, sometimes people literally don't have the 30 minutes it would take to read the article. But I can throw that article into ChatGPT and I can say, give me the top 10 bullet points on this article. And then a beautiful thing about it now is like they have a conversation bar on there that you can switch on. Have a conversation with this thing. So then you take the link, throw the link into there, say, analyze this, give me the top 10 bullet points. You're on a drive to work. Within 6 minutes, you have a 50-minute long article that you would have taken to read it, but now you have the actual points that you were looking for, as opposed to just reading filler words for an hour. It's like I got every piece of information I needed in a 7-minute span. I'm like, sometimes this stuff is going to be so powerful if you just know the ways to use it. Like my mom, for example, she's dealing with some like plumbing issues in her house, and like she was dealing with an insurance company that just wasn't trying to pay. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, I have no knowledge of how to deal with insurance companies. It's not my wheelhouse. I'm not a lawyer. I don't deal with insurance and how they don't want to pay for the things you pay for every month. But I go to ChatGPT. I'm like, I'm having a plumbing issue. My house has been like damaged for 2 months. The insurance company is not fixing what they said they were going to fix. Please write a letter expressing my dissatisfaction with the service provided. Click.
Nice.
Bro, I'm talking like this thing was so well written. I just sent it to my mom and she sends it to her lawyer and he's like, where did you write this? And he's like, I don't have to change anything. And I was like, yeah, that's crazy. 1 minute.
That is crazy.
And then so I was thinking in my head, like anybody that's involved with business that deals with tech, I would say, has to learn to integrate AI or else they're going to get left behind, like you said. But I'm going to even rephrase that and say that anybody involved in business has to learn AI or else you get left behind. I can't think of a business. I mean, even if you drive an ice cream truck, like as far as your marketing and your keeping track of your expenses and seeing what route you're going to be on, all of these things, if you're not integrating the AI, then the other ice cream truck will, and he's going to put you out of business.
We've got a YouTube channel where me and my cousin were golfing.
Oh yeah, Mulligan Mafia.
The Mulligan
you can give
Mafia.
him a shout out.
Yeah, appreciate you. Mulligan Mafia. Check us out. Like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate it. We started doing some work, and what's crazy is like in the future we're going to probably start trying to release like golf apparel and whatnot. Like most of my cousins, no shade, bigger lads is what it is. Golf space does not take care of people in that space.
Facts.
So in the future, like we're thinking of maybe possibly putting out a line for that. And so I've never run a clothing company. I know people who have, and I can kind of utilize the relationships we've built over time, but I've never done it. And so I don't even know how to design a shirt. You go to AI and it's like, hey, design me a 4-way stretch golf t-shirt that looks like this and is inspired by this. I want to keep it local, so let's use Arizona Diamondbacks colors mixed with colors of like the Sedona Mountains to keep it classy. And all of a sudden, I've now got 10 to 20 versions of what I want. And I'm over here, I'm like, if I were to even try to learn the program to generate like a 3D render, would take me 6 months.
Right.
But just because I knew what I was looking for, and you kind of know how to ask the question, and then what's cool is like when you play with it, you kind of learn to correctly prompt AI. You can get some just incredible results. And I'm like, okay, I could send this to a designer who actually knows what they're doing and be like, is this possible? Is this something that I could genuinely put out to the public? And then a professional could tell me like, this is doable. It's going to be X amount of dollars. You talk about the ice cream truck. I'm like, go to Midjourney. If you don't even have a logo, like generate an ice cream logo that shows ice cream melting in this specific way and incorporate Arizona in some way, shape, or form, right? Use these specific colors in my logo and let's see what happens. Just see what comes out of it. It's crazy. My stepdad, he released this membership program for, he's a dermatologist out here in the Valley. He just released a membership program. Dude doesn't know how to generate logos. Dude doesn't know how to generate graphics or anything like that. But sure enough, go into Chat GPT. Hey, I'm trying to create a logo that incorporates my business colors, that talks about a membership that people access. What is it? Treatments that we don't offer to the public. It spits out this thing that incorporates like Botox injections, Juvederm, skin tightening treatments, laser hair removal. Like all of this is somehow integrated into this logo.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, how?
Right.
All you can say is, how did you come up with this? Because it
Can't
is
explain
so
it.
good.
Closest thing to magic that we all have access to.
Yeah. This feels like,
I feel you, and this is where our rift comes, right? Because
Yeah.
this is when you talk about closest thing to magic. It's like he got done telling us how he was taking Vicodin and out of nowhere had this inclination to check out a Brett Favre documentary that basically had a huge change possibly in your life and your health. And that, I think all people reach these weird coincidences that for some reason came into them and can drastically change their experience on everything. So in a way, like that seems like magic for a lot of people's experiences. And we don't understand why it works. We just know that if you're more aware of it, more coincidences and synchronicities start to occur. And it's like you're on this right path. And this is something people have experienced for a long time. So it's like,
you're describing a magical process, but this is like having a wand.
that's true. But like this, we know who created it and we know where it came from.
but
I know
that's
that
all,
we all
that's
have
all
faith.
tech, right?
That's tech.
That's all tech. But where does tech come from? Like, who does tech come from?
Like a human being.
Tech started with humans, and then it's like, then you just follow that line down. It's like, where did the humans come from, and so on and so forth. So it's like you're not necessarily arguing. You're not arguing different things. It's just like you're arguing almost like different points in time of the same thing.
Yeah,
right?
I see it more because I guess you could either see tech as being an evolution of a human being, or it's this productivity tool that's just going to be like amazing.
I'd say it's part of our evolution. The fact
so
that
you
we
think it's
all
like
roll
humans-
around with our cell phone, and most of us use computers on a daily basis, and our cars are so computerized. Like tech is a part of our lives. I was telling my wife the other day, I was like, how long would it take for the whole world to just fall apart if the internet went out? Like how much do we rely?
A week?
Maybe not even that long.
No, I mean, man.
If the whole world had no internet.
I was actually going to say, I was like, you want to talk about like magic. Imagine the first, because we weren't there when, well, we were around, but we weren't probably aware. It's like the first time the internet got sent to the public.
First time an email was sent.
First time an email was sent, right? Where you're like, yo, it usually takes 3 to 5 business days for us to send mail.
That was
it's like,
magic
it's
at
like,
that point
watch
for
this,
them. Yeah.
click, bing, and it's on your screen, right?
Yeah.
Instantaneous.
For sure.
You're over here like, hold on, what did you just do? If this was like the Salem witch trials, you'd be burned at a stake for what you just created, right? But all that was is like a human found a way to like utilize some form of tech to get an email to go from this computer to that one. And I'm like, man, you can go deep into this kind of stuff. You can go deep into this thinking.
It's happened so much faster than anybody gives credit for.
Yeah. This is exponential. This isn't linear. This is like you said, it's like, do you really think this was formed for essays? And it's like, we're seeing the tip of the iceberg kind of thing. It's like, what else is sitting like below the public knowledge of this? Like what is in the private sector?
Yeah.
And how good is that?
And see, that's how I feel about like the little synchronicities of our life. Cause it's like, okay, we like, wow, that was crazy that I came across this woman who changed my whole life for the better. And I wonder what like the people in the know, if they're tapped into this flow state where they're like always manifesting these kind of like occurrences and relationships into their life that are always like getting them to this highest self that they're supposed to kind of like grow into.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I kind of see them as like the both of the same thing where it's like, I think some people are like,
So you think that's magical though?
Definitely, because it's like you can't measure it. It's unmeasurable. It's like there's nowhere to find it. We talked about quantum leaps and metaphysics, where it's like this like consciousness, this field that things just burst out of that we don't even understand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's so many factors involved when you talk about like the result of an interaction. That's what takes me away from like wanting to label it as like magic, because our existence is magical. I talk about how amazing it is that we're built of cells.
Yeah.
What is that?
Intelligent.
Where all of these cells are just together in my body, and now I have a consciousness and I can make all these things and have these interactions. Like that is, that's magic to me. Science is magical to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I know down to that level that I still can't say that I understand.
Right.
I just know all the details and facts about it. But it's like when it comes down to it, it's like,
So I take it you are more like numbers and understanding sciences, and you lean more faith-based and
like
down that side.
I think in this conversation, it's like an abstract versus like logic, almost like a debate, you know what I mean? And
Okay.
we find ourselves getting back to it a lot.
That's cool. I mean, here's the thing, like both can exist.
Yeah, both have to.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, and that's
so.
kind of where I'm like, when people kind of get into these arguments and I mean, shoot, my dad is a doctor, a medical professional. And then I'll listen to my mom, who is faith-based, and you hear how they would have like arguments. And it's kind of like my dad is so logic, reason, numbers based, and he's over here talking about like the solar system and how like the tilt of the earth gives this specific rotation, and therefore we're also in this Goldilocks zone, and the reason we're in this Goldilocks zone is the only reason that life can exist. And then he's over here, he's like, that's strictly numbers. That's the only thing that makes sense. He's like, the Big Bang Theory occurred. And then my mom's like, okay, but why did we luck out in being in the exact distance from the sun? Like what, like,
the purpose of it.
like, what is the purpose? You're trying to tell me that like we just so happen to luck out that our planet is not 200,000 miles slightly further and it's freezing cold, or 200,000 miles closer and we're burning. Like that's the difference over here. And yeah, man, I mean, like, I think, both can exist.
Right,
It's like
I
maybe like
agree.
the science of it is just like we're now starting to be able to put words and numbers into it to actually make it make sense for us. Like maybe we're just like, kind of like what you're saying, like maybe we're just not tapped into that higher being or higher self.
There's a lot of things that we as humans have not figured out how to articulate.
Right.
So there's new discoveries of materials and elements and planets and things that if we haven't seen them before, you can't really explain it. And it takes the collaboration and the research of the background to try to come up with an interpretation.
Yeah.
That could be wrong because it's new. And
Yeah.
there's nobody to fact check it when it's new, right?
I can guarantee you, if we took today's technology and you dropped us in 1912 and we said, hey, I know you guys are like in buggies and carts right now, but I can promise you one day there's going to be vehicles that travel at 1,500 miles an hour. And they're over here like, that doesn't make sense.
That time traveler theory.
That time traveler theory, man. Like there's some crazy
Do you
stuff.
believe in that?
What, that somebody can time travel?
Yeah. Because, again, with our exponential growth in technology, in theory, as fast as our technology is growing, 1,000 years from now, if humans are still around, then we'd probably figure something like that out.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think
Have you seen like the pictures where
Dude.
there's like somebody in the picture?
yeah,
Like,
a little weird. You're like, you don't fit.
you're wearing modern clothes.
Yeah.
Like,
I also like some of those things. I'm not saying that it's not true.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying it's not true. Unfortunately, we also live in a day where I'm like, Photoshop exists.
yeah.
Right. So then you have
Beyond Photoshop.
Beyond
exists.
Photoshop exists. Right. Now we've got things that I could be like, hey, I want to be in Africa in the middle of the sub-Saharan desert with lions chasing me. And it does it. But I'm also, what's crazy with the time traveler theory, I saw a post where it was like, what if, or somebody said like space is littered with the bodies of time travelers that didn't account for like celestial drift. So I'm over here, I'm like, yo, what if they did figure out the formula to time travel and they just left out one digit?
And they can't get to the right place.
And I'm over here, I'm like, yo, you're talking about like, I don't know how fast we're moving through space, but it's like, if you don't account for that perfectly, I'm talking about like the depth of Earth, right?
Yeah.
What if I slightly miscalculate and I end up 7 feet deeper than I was supposed to?
Yeah.
Or I end up in the
100 feet.
side of a mountain or that kind of stuff, right?
And if someone did successfully time travel, then it would be like a little like egotistic to think that we're the only ones that got like the information about something that was greater. Because I think like maybe
I think there's other life, dude, if I'm brutally honest. Like, I'm just saying, like, we might have just been a side project for the higher up. Like, let's just put this one on this planet, let's put these ones on this planet, and let's just see what happens.
Make sure they don't figure each other out too early.
It's God's petri dishes, bro.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it. Where, especially when you start hearing stories where Earth received a radio beacon from X amount of millions of miles away, and you're like,
that's interesting.
we just have a radio signal moving through space.
The weird thing to me is all the like cataclysmic events that have happened throughout history, because I mean, who knows what they knew before it all like blew up or before it all froze over.
Dude.
You know, it could have just been to this level of great technology, and then it just went back to humans with no internet trying to figure out their minds again until they could build it back up.
I told you I had this conversation with my aunt, but we were like up until literally like 7 o'clock this morning, just deep diving into stuff. You look at like, what is it, like the ancient like Sumerian texts and stuff like that. They've got stories of a king that lived for 28,000 years. I'm like, okay, that's hard to believe because like our human biology does not allow for that currently. But I also know that like humans are living longer now because we are learning more and more about modern medicine. And
we're good at keeping people alive.
We're good at keeping people alive. So then I'm like, okay, what did they know? What did people who what's the volcano? Pompeii. It's like, what did people in Pompeii know before the volcano erupted? What did people know before the Yellowstone volcano? Like what we know now, if the Yellowstone goes off, hey, we're all done, right? So then I'm like, what did the ancient Egyptians know before that stopped? What did we know before the Ice Age hit?
Or what even happened to take out the ancient?
What even happened, right? So you think like we've lost probably more knowledge than we've ever had. Than we currently have, we've probably lost more knowledge over the course of time. So it's like, if you look at it and it's like, if we didn't have these moments that broke the chain of knowledge, or you look at like the Library of Alexandria, for example.
That's exactly
one of the greatest like collections of knowledge, right? They didn't have computers yet, so somebody literally lit a torch and wiped out the greatest basically the internet of the ancient day. They just eliminated it.
And their enemies saw how powerful it was for their culture. This collection of information, whatever it was.
And you look at like philosophers like Socrates and all these other guys that are just high level educated people. Some people looked at them like they're absolutely crazy, but then if you allow that kind of stuff to run its course and that way of thinking to run its course, or what's the other one? You look at like the Renaissance period.
Yeah, we just talked about this.
Where they're just like, where it's like, we're only going to allow this kind of thinking to occur. Like, what happens if you just actually allow people to go into that flow state and go through it and see where it takes us? Like, where could we actually go?
You had to do a lot of self-teaching with the cameras. Right? You've shown me some things. Give our audience a couple little tips, like for beginners, because I know I bought a pretty nice camera, not knowing too much about it. And you're telling me stuff about like aperture and the
f-stop,
and the different type of lenses, and there's so much that goes into it. But is there any like kind of basic base knowledge that somebody should be aware of if they're using a camera of that, I guess, caliber?
Man, okay, base knowledge. A lot of the times it does not. A lot of people get caught up in, I don't have the right technology to be competitive in a space, right? I don't have the right equipment to do this. I want to like dispel that myth. The reality is it really does come down to it sounds cliche. It's like the content that you put out and the lens in which your mind works. Like it's better for you to be authentic and just shoot what you think looks good and do what you like, as opposed to trying to be like, hey, I saw Sony release something new. I should go buy it because it's new. Mm-hmm. What's crazy is there are Hollywood movies right now that have been shot on iPhone. The new iPhone 15 is as powerful as 90+% of DSLRs.
Yeah, just picked one of them.
Like incredible. You start shooting in log with that thing, you're going to have more, you're going to have as much control with like color space and whatnot and color manipulation as one of these cameras do.
And what do you mean by in log?
So there's like a setting in your camera. Shooting in log, basically you shoot everything. It's going to come out looking like, when I say flat, your image is not going to have a lot of saturation. It's not going to have a lot of, it's literally going to look like almost like a gray screen, right? But then if you take it into an editing software, you're going to realize that you can manipulate the colors 10x what you could if you just shot with a regular camera. So like right now you guys are shooting, I'm assuming 4K 30 frames per second or 4K 24 frames per second.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You get into iPhone and that's going to you're going to be able to kind of shift and move the exposure slightly. You're going to be able to kind of adjust the skin slightly before things start looking wonky. Right? You're going to boost the saturation to like 100. You're going to be like, whoa, the midtones are way off. That iPhone 15 Pro, you could basically make me look like the Hulk color-wise, and it would almost look like it makes sense. You could change the background of this wall from white to green, and you wouldn't notice like pixelation in the background. You have a lot more space to play with than you would just shooting kind of like out of camera. It takes a lot of more work on the back end, but the power that you have now in your pocket is up there with some of the most expensive cameras on earth.
Oh, that's cool.
Now,
YouTube's powerful. People got a lot of information on YouTube.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing is I'm like, your ability as a creator is limited to your just willingness to learn.
Sure. I mean, I've been watching these iPhone 15 Pro reviews for like a week now because I knew I was getting it, but I had never heard about shooting in log or even how you could manipulate it with the software. So that's new information, like for me.
Yeah.
Have you thought about making content about stuff like this?
I have thought about it. The truth is, man, there are a ton of creators, and if I'm honest, I don't necessarily care to be in front of the camera. I think I could help teach people. Who knows? Maybe after this podcast, I'll shoot something.
Yeah.
But I don't. Content creation is a whole animal in itself.
Oh yeah.
It is so incredibly time consuming, and so for me, my bigger focus right now would be like, I want to run my business. I want to grow the clientele that we have, and eventually, what I want to do is I want to get to a place where currently we have 3 or 4 editors just working on the projects we have. Personally, I'd like to get this media house to a point where I've got 25 to 50 people and I'm running like a nonstop clientele.
Yeah.
That's what I think I would prefer to focus on right now. But yeah, man,
How do you recruit editors?
how do I recruit editors? It's a lot of social media. So I love seeing if you can see how many people are actually like genuinely good creators, right? Catch-22 is if you want a really good creator, you're going to have to pay for a really good creator. I was watching Patrick Bet David talk about hiring, and he was like, to hire like a 10, you're going to have to pay a 10. But he's like, I think it's something like, he's like 10 to 15 eights is what 110 can do. So it's like, depending on the projects I have, depending on the work I've got, I will kind of judge, can I teach this person the skills necessary to do this work in a short amount of time? If I can, dude, I'll hire someone off the street. If they're hardworking and dedicated. Like, my biggest thing is, if you have a willingness to learn and you're not easily just like sidetracked, because a lot of this is, I'm not going to chase you down. I'm not going to be over your shoulder, like being like, you have a deadline, get it done. I'm like, you're an adult, figure this out, right? I'm going to teach you every skill you need to do, but time management is on you. I'm going to have an ample amount of work for you to select from. You're always going to have work that's available to you. It's up to you how far you want to go. Like, I don't even personally like doing employees. I prefer doing like 1099 contracting because I tend to get a lot better, I don't want to say ROI, but my return on investment is, I'm not going to pay someone who's not working.
Right.
I'm big on hardworking people, and I want to pay people who work hard. I don't want to pay someone who just comes in, clocks in, and sits and twiddles their thumbs.
And pay for the work that they're doing.
And then pay for the work.
the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. My biggest thing is, like, if you are skilled and you want to edit, there is a role for you. I have work for you. But I've been caught up in like the past where we'll hire someone because we like them as a person, and then it makes it really difficult to fire someone. And so we've just gotten to the point where it's like, I will hire extremely slow, but I will fire at the drop of a hat. It's just, we don't have time essentially to babysit you on doing the bare minimum requirement. Right. And I think unfortunately, like, a lot of younger people kind of, like, unfortunately, it's like, I just see this kind of cutoff. It's like 24 and below. They want it like immediate. They expect to be making a 6-figure salary just because they happen to drop their resume off at my door. And I'm like, I will gladly pay you that if you can produce that.
Right.
Right. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. It's like I said, my goal is to just get to 25 to 50 editors. And like I said, I'd gladly pay you all $100,000 a year if you're worth $100,000 a year. But right now, like, I've got 5 dudes who are just dogs and they can grind. Like, I don't have to call them. They're calling me like, hey, do we have more work coming in the pipeline? I'm like, don't stress. It's on its way. But they're constantly calling me because they are hungry.
Nice.
And like that hunger to succeed.
Yeah.
I like people who want that.
True.
Right? You're gonna get a different caliber of work out of those people. So yeah, that's probably where I would go. Starting content for myself. Yeah, I just don't have a feeling for it at the moment.
Is it hard to be the one shooting the shot and editing, or are a lot of people able to do those too?
Shooting the shot and editing. It's kind of a balance. I mean, if you're the one shooting, you obviously have an idea of what you want to come out at the end as the end result. So, I mean, shoot, a lot of times, like, we'll be on the golf course and you kind of get into like a repetitive angles. You keep doing the same thing. And then all of a sudden you'll kind of like walk off to a slightly different spot. And then all of a sudden you're like, hold on, this looks fantastic. Right. And so I'll do that. I'll do a lot of the filming. And then if I have a specific vision in mind, I'll make sure to coordinate with my editors where I'm like, hey, I'm shooting this in this specific way. Let's just use like cars, for example. I'll be like, hey, I'm shooting this emblem because it's round. I want you to transition from this emblem to the wheel because it's a similar shape. And I want you to do a specific masking technique in this way. And then right from there, there's going to be a beat cut at this point, hit it here. And then I want you to put the exhaust at this point. Now, that might be a process that I go through for 3 months with an editor where I am just on them crazy hard in the beginning. But I guarantee you by month 4, these guys are self-sufficient, completely self-sufficient in that specific area. And then they are now my niche my editor for that specific niche. And then I can go build a separate niche over here and go service a separate niche over here. And then once I get a full grasp of that and how I like to shoot it, how I like it edited, I'll then contract out an editor and be like, hey, here's the body of work that I've done for this specific niche. I'm going to teach you how to do it. And then, it's hand holding for 3 months. And then month 4, these guys are monsters. And that's the goal. Nice. It's like, I want to build monsters in my company. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's a strong process. Yeah.
Sounds like you saw like a quarterback spirit, you know?
Yeah.
Like you
Dude, I don't think that goes away. Nah. I think you have that in you. You have that. I think most people who like are athletes and really like were devoted to what they do, it translates.
Yeah. Got that dog.
Just translates. It doesn't matter. I'll try and beat you in tic-tac-toe if I can.
Right. Yeah. Now I'm thinking of my homie Donovan. Just the two of us playing Monopoly for 5 hours. Like, why we do?
Like, why did we
too
do
competitive this? For either of us to say, nah, it's late. Like, nah, we had to finish that game. And I'll admit I took the L, but it's not gonna happen again.
No,
you know?
I think it's huge though. You have to surround yourself with people who are like that.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you've got a hard working individual and you pair them up with a lazy human, you're gonna get the average of the two, unfortunately, right? But if you've got a partner in business that is just like hell-bent on getting to the next level, and I don't even know what that next level looks like, but you're just hell-bent on being on that journey and being better and like trying to achieve excellence, man, getting a running mate that has that same mentality as you, so critical. So.
Nice. That's sound advice right there.
Man, really.
I like that. All right, man. We're going to let you get out of here.
Sweet.
We appreciate you, Brandon.
I had fun.
It's been cool.
Definitely.
I knew that this would be a good conversation, and I was telling Brandon before we started I didn't give Russ too much background information.
Yeah.
Because I just felt it, and it came out the way that I expected. Beautiful.
Awesome.
Beautiful. R&B pod@gmail.com is our email. Y'all hit us up, give us feedback. If you want to be on the show, let us know. If you need any assistance with your podcast production, let us know. We have 1 month left of the year, and I won't give our little New Year spiel too early, but just let everybody know we appreciate the support we've had thus far, and it's been a great opening year for the show. And Mr. Cluff here is coming in on episode 46.
Yeah,
Episode 46.
That's crazy, man. Good for you.
Yeah, we're going to start 2024 with our 50th episode, I think. I'm saying that.
We'll be right on track to be New Year's.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So just moving into this next year, the feedback is crucial because we want to elevate. Brandon has Mulligan Mafia, who has done very well. You guys should check them out. It's entertaining. We're taking notes from them. The editing quality is clearly way past ours because he has that background knowledge. But I'm over here like picking his brain along the way.
Man. We'll have some more conversation.
Yeah,
I'll give you some.
And I'm gonna have to get on
nuggets.
the course with y'all too because they have a good time out there. So Mulligan Mafia, check them out. Studio Black Films.
We're out here in the Valley. Looking for content, you're looking for social media marketing management, we take care of that as well. We're getting into the Google ad space, hiring some people for that. So you want to run some ads, you want to get some incredible content, you want to get some marketing under your belt, we're the guys that call.
Nice. Shout out Elevate Personal Training, LLC. You can't find no better trainer in the Southwest, I guarantee. What you got?
Rhythm and Balance Productions for putting together this beautiful production today.
Them boys.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And with that, like last week, we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.